Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sea Trade Cruise Talks. This is the last talk in the mini-series I've been conducting over the past 3 months. With the help of very interesting people, I'm looking at why we travel and learning that a major reason for it is the development of inner perspectives and the formation of very personal median points. Sea Trade Global has been generous in lending me the stage on which to share that interest. In return, I'm trying to introduce ideas and thoughts that may help us, those involved in the design and operation within the hospitality segment, to fine-tune our work to guests' genuine well-being and to the well-being of the cultures that welcome them on their journeys. I want us to walk away from the talk today with new insights on how fundamental cultural sustainability is to a meaningful guest experience. So in the words of Chief Seattle, take only memories. Let's reflect on cultural sustainability and memorable guest experiences from curatorial, design, and operational perspectives. My fellow chatmates today, in alphabetical order, are Simon Casson, President, Hotel Operations, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. James Dilley, Director and Head of Hospitality and Interior Design for Justico & Wiles, and Federico Torresi, Global Vice President of Design, Luxury and Premium Brands for Accor. Now, we have known each other for quite a while, but nevertheless, I'm going to tell you a few words about each of the gentlemen who joined me today. Simon was working as a teenager, washing dishes at a busy restaurant in Northern England. And that was enough for him to decide he wants to be someone who makes that excitement happen. So in 1989, he joined Four Seasons and has been a pivotal player in the growth and success of the brand ever since. One of Simon's passions is education. And in addition to his day job, he is also a founding board member of the Andron Hospitality Management School in the Philippines. What you may not know about Simon is that he's both a musician and a singer. And it will take a lot of restraints on my part not to ask you to sing some of your ideas today. So I'll refrain. James joined Justico & Wiles in 1994 when he was about 12 and has since specialized in architectural and interior design for hospitality projects of all types. James lectures internationally in hotel design and is a judge for prestigious international award panels, including World Interior News Awards, the Blueprint Awards, and the International Hospitality Awards. Should he ever step away from designing hotels and ships, James may very well find himself behind a deli counter. He has a passion and relevant skills in the art of charcuterie and curing fish. Now, talking about disadvantages of Zoom meetings, there you go. Federico joined Accor 4 years ago after spending 20 years in architecture and design for the hospitality segment. Federico gained a wide and deep perspective on the industry, working with the likes of Gensler, WATG, and ADAS on the one hand, and boutique practices like Black Sheep and Anushka Hempel on the other. Federico's strategic team is the key link between the luxury, premium, lifestyle, and partner brands and the regional design and technical services teams, working closely with operations, marketing, brand, and development to facilitate concept creations across the globe. Born in Rome, raised in London, currently residing in Paris, Federico compares his design thinking to his barbecuing skills. That's an interesting one. Nomadic, but rooted in European traditions, informed by an experiential antipodean approach and with a twist of American confidence. So, with no further ado, this talk is designed to test itself so that we don't just talk. I put us all together because of our diverse backgrounds and the different focal points and disciplines that we practice. James designs hotels and cruise ships with a keen interest in setting the stage for authentic guest experience. Federico develops and oversees a core drive to innovation when it comes to sustainability in all its forms, across its luxury and premium brands globally. I happen to lead a company that curates art collections for hotels and cruise ships with a premise of developing narratives that surface the voices of cultures through art and craft. And Simon oversees the operation of a very coherent luxury brand and can provide us with a real world view of whether all those efforts we put into sustaining cultures through design, branding, and art really manage to inspire meaningful guest experience, or are we all just engaged in self-serving discussion and blowing a lot of air? So this is what I expect from the call today. To set the stage for our chat, I would like you to reflect on how important is the notion of real versus staged cultural manifestation to a genuine guest experience. I'll explain what I mean. It's the difference between, say, wandering the streets of a city you have just set foot in and stumbling over a street cart at the end of a long line of local people where someone who doesn't speak your language hands you the most delicious street food in yesterday's newspaper wrap, versus being bussed off to a performance of a local genuine group in genuine traditional dress who dance for you between 7 and 7:45 just before you are served local authentic dinner and bussed back to your hotel. So, your reflections.
Well, I think if I may jump into that, it's quite funny because my parents' experience of traveling was just that, right? They would go and focus their time, make sure they got on the right bus to get to the right event. What we're trying to do these days with our brands is kind of twist it on its head and make everything immersive and make everything available to be discovered by our guests. So the approach is very much, we're not going to tell you anything about where you are, but we're going to give you hints about how you can discover it and kind of become part of it. And the way we're doing that, we're trying to, I wouldn't say script these experiences, but design the spaces in such a way that they lend themselves to give us the opportunity to gift our guests that kind of discovery that they would probably make in a longer spell of time, in a shorter spell of time. And then give them clues as to what they can do with the discoveries and just go outside of the environment. I'm talking about the hotel environment as such for now, to see how they can feel part of that community. So it's kind of interesting how it's kind of turned on its head. And I think who's not doing that at the moment is finding that they're getting less and less repeat business, so less and less word of mouth to say, oh, that experience was great, you should go and check it out. Also because the way we are doing it through, we are showing off through social media about our experiences. The whole world needs to know a little hint about what's going on, but they want to go and experience it themselves. So it's quite interesting that you made that kind of starting comment there.
Yeah, I guess everyone likes to think that their travel today has to be aspirational, has to be experiential, which sets the bar, really, really high. And of course, we have business travel. If I think of myself when I travel, and pre-pandemic, I was maybe 180 days a year on the road, and you're literally going from plane to car to hotel to meetings and don't really get a sense of the city. But, I think the hotel's job, starting with the inception of its location, its design, its interiors, and then, built by the service experience is to create the invitation, sort of to open the door to what might be there. And, if I sort of think what we did with the Four Seasons private jet was really try at a very high level, and of course, to a very small group of people, take it to a completely different plane, pardon the pun, in that, the jet was really a means to an end to take people to different Four Seasons hotels. But anyone can really do that. Many people have their own jets, and who's, relatively wealthy can afford to stay in the hotel. So what we did was then build in experiences, things that, if not impossible, would be very difficult for you to do on your own. So, if the jet stops in Italy or in St. Petersburg or in the Serengeti, we're putting together experiences. So, might be, in St. Petersburg that you get an out of hours privately curated tour of one of the famous museums. in Florence, it might be the opportunity to meet the mayor and meet in his office in Palazzo Vecchio, and, trying to really open the door to experiences that, in today's world give you immediate Instagrammable opportunities, but also when you get home, dinner party bragging rights. Everyone wants to talk about what they did, and everyone loves to be the one that said, I've done something that I don't think anyone else here might have done. And that speaks to, the aspirational, but also very much the experiential aspect of travel.
I think it's a difficult one because, at the moment we work within a framework of designing experiences which are built on three things. I think provenance, authenticity, and some theatre. Those are the three things which people are looking for at the moment. And anecdotally, the thing that confuses me, I was in Russia a couple of years ago, and deep Russia, not Moscow, not St. Petersburg. Really interesting place, very nice people. Done a couple of days of working, long, hard presentations, and the owner said, "This great couple of days. Let's go and have a drink. Let's go and celebrate. Let's drink some scotch." And I said, "Well, I'm in the middle of Russia. I don't want to drink scotch. Let's drink some vodka." And we were sitting in his bar, and it transpired that they didn't sell vodka there. He had to send one of the guys out to the corner of the street to buy vodka, and the guy came back with a bottle of Grey Goose, which is French vodka. And I thought, okay, I'm drinking vodka and French vodka in Russia. Is that authentic? When in fact the people that lived there weren't drinking vodka. So what was authentic and what was theatre? What was about perception? What was the reality? It didn't matter. I found it, it's very exciting and very interesting and all of that stuff. But we sometimes create our own reality, and our own expectations inform sometimes the product which we're sold. And then at the other extreme, we recently worked on a very sustainable project. It's a resort in Zanzibar where there's a lot of challenges which led to opportunities. So there's no regular power, there's no clean drinking water available. We had to deal with the filtered water. Do you sell the water? Do you have it in a great bottle? The fact that it was filtered and it wasn't bought and imported from Fiji was nice. It was sustainable. But the product there, it's this one of the spice islands. The product there, the spice garden, was planted 2 years before the hotel was finished, and those spices now inform the menu, and they inform the spice treatments. And you know what? If you want to pay even more, you can get taken out by the head gardener and pick your own spices. And this is interesting. At what point would you be paying more to do somebody else's job for you? If it's experiential and it brings you in touch with reality, people want that. It's collectible. And as Simon said, it's scalable at dinner parties and Instagram.
It's Tom Sawyer painting the fence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. It's interesting that you're all bringing out experiences that are pretty much personal experiences, more than structured experiences, which is really, I think, the challenge of how do we then structure them? How do we enable others to have them if they do not have the opportunity? Because it's very easy to do a hotel in Amman, Jordan, and put olive trees and camels and things of that nature, and think that you're really serving the culture. But it's true that it could be that you're there and there's not one single camel, not one single olive tree, like there's no vodka in a Russian bar in a forsaken city in Russia. So which part of it is the real culture that we are serving? Which one do we actually sustain when we try to sustain it? Because in our respective disciplines, and we do practice different ones, we all try to be genuine, authentic, culturally honest, right? In a sense, we struggle to maintain cultural sustainability, but we each have our own sensitivities in practicing it. And then the relevant brands, sorry, Federico, the relevant brands have their own agenda into what is it that could be practiced. So what would cultural sustainability mean for each one of you when looking at it from that perspective?
I think we've got to start off from the point that we would like to transform a curious mind of a guest, and how do we inform that curiosity? And I think by using art, by using the methodology of having art in a property, in a hotel or a resort, which starts reflecting the environment it's sitting in. And by environment, I don't mean just the space, I also mean the culture. I think you start providing opportunities for that local culture to then flourish in the environment you're building, and to start interacting with people at whatever level they choose to interact on, because of the curious mind could be just superficial, or could be somebody like yourself, Tal, who has read thousands and thousands of books since you were 7, because you just want to learn and learn more. So we need to create opportunities where our guests feel they can jump in at any level. And then the people that are helping us with the artwork, and the artwork is not something just figurative, you know, artwork could be anything from amazing food, picking your own spices. It could be a performance, or it could be a feeling, it could be sound, it could be all sorts of the senses put together. And I think that with that, you've got a really nice introduction to sustainable approach to art, which in a way we can associate with living a good life. And living a good life can mean lots of different things, but that's the kind of main feeling that we would love to give our guests when they go into any of our properties, whether it's economy all the way up to ultra luxury. And how do you do that whilst maintaining a cultural interest that's appropriate, and giving opportunities to the local culture to inspire people, and therefore flourish in that environment. That's the key, and that's, for me, that's one of the hardest things to achieve when trying to figure out how to put together immersive experiences, you know, for our guests along the guest journey, around spaces that you're trying to design. It's kind of, it's almost too philosophical to put into a set of rules, but you have to apply that philosophy at different levels in the different brands that you have, in different parts of the spaces that you have, to see how that culture can really shape the experience and shape the future of that culture and of your hotel as a business as well. So it's a real fine balance.
It is that exact challenge that I'm after, that I think James put, you know, with this little anecdote of the bar and the vodka, put it exactly, or put the finger exactly on it. And I spent about a decade of the 25 years that I'm running Artlink. On an average, Simon, you were saying 180 days, on an average of 123 flights a year between 44 countries. That means continuous traveling. So you lose seasons, there are no holidays, there are no weekends. There's just, you know, the days and the experiences. And after a while, you realize that your whole perspective on the world changes, because I would get to a city that I don't know, somewhere in the world, and I wake up in the morning and see whatever CNN on, you know, in the hotel, just to know what's going on around me, and then spend the rest of the day experiencing the place through the bellies of artists, because that's all I would do. I would meet artists, talk to them, see their works, and, you know, absorb their culture through their work. So for many cities in the world, my only perspective is through the art, which of course creates a very unique way of looking at a space. Now, Federico, you're expanded it, and I totally agree, to other experiences and food and the design elements, of course, of the hotel and so on and so forth. But to what extent, if I pull us back to that sustainability, cultural sustainability, to what extent should we stage it and leave it as is and let the guests experience it the way they experience? And to which one should we sort of usher and push and encourage and help?
Now, I mean, for me, I'm going to be a little bit controversial, particularly as, you know, my colleagues and friends on the call, you're all in the business of creating the physical. And for me, it always comes down to the differentiating factors between a good hotel and a great hotel, and the sort of precept that, you know, a good hotel, of course, rests on, you know, the location within a city or a resort, rests on the physical build, the architecture, you know, having a building that has architectural merit and interest, hopefully a sense of place, and then how the interiors are curated, you know, whether that's with marble, with lighting, you know, with furniture, with art. They're all essential components to create a good hotel, but not necessarily a great hotel, because they can be bought. So if you put all that together, someone could take the plot of land next and hire the same architect, the same interior designers, the same art consultant, and could replicate it. And so in my experience, and certainly it's through a Four Seasons lens, that whilst they're all essential, the quantum leap from good to great is actually human. It's experiential, and so it's delivered by people. Now that's the canvas that they have to play on, and in many ways for the ultra high net worth travelers and discerning luxury guests, it's expected, the architectural, the interiors. But what's not expected, because they can't pay for it, is someone caring. And that comes back to authenticity of experience. It can't be scripted. And, you know, I have many stories, but to relate a quick one from years ago in Doha, Christine, a receptionist at the front desk, a road warrior business guy who came regularly, was saying to, you know, I want to take something back for my son, and he collect coins. Do you have any local coins? And, you know, in the Middle East, the notes are not worth a lot, the 1 dirham note, so the coins are. So she said, let me check if a taxi driver has, and she brought him back a coin. When she finished her shift, she went to the local souk and bought one of those plastic box sets that had the 6 coins that exist. Probably cost her $5 or something. And she gave it to him when he checked out the next day. And he wrote to me and he said, you know, you have an amazing hotel in Doha. It was beautifully built, and it's, you know, it's just gone through a $60 million renovation actually recently. But he said, I will be loyal to your brand for the rest of my life because of Christine, because she cared enough to know that for me, as a dad always on the road, arriving home, coming with those coins is going to make me a superhero. And for me, it is that humanity of service that ultimately creates the experience. And so the culture of hotels, you know, the sort of blood that pumps through the veins of that amazing building is people.
Yeah, I can go back to when I started doing this. I was fortunate enough to work with a supreme hotelier in the, you know, from the previous generations who knew about care, exactly what Simon's saying. And we were designing the room, and there was a, you know, flat spaces for things. And somebody said, you know, this is great. You know, you get the VIP, and this is where we put the big basket of fruit with the cellophane and the ribbon around it. He said, guys, I'm not going to do that, because that says I don't care. You know, as a young guy, I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, I want my chef to have selected the best peach that's ripe and ready to eat, that's perfect, with a great plate and a sharp knife that he can cut it with without the juice going everywhere. And I can tell you that my guests will appreciate that one perfect peach rather than the biggest bouquet of fruit that you could possibly give. He said, I can just do that, sign it and order it, and it comes. Nobody's touched it, and it means you don't care. And I had no idea what he was talking about until that moment, and then I got it. And that actually helps you with design. You know, once he said it's the perfect peach, then you look at the lighting, you look at how it's displayed, you want it to be something which is looks special rather than negligent, so people can pay attention to it, and it becomes part of the experience. He's the one that said to me 25 years ago, he said, it's about experience. There's 2 components of experience. There's the environment, which you can do, and there's a service that I'll do. But they both have to work together. If we get environment and service right, you've got a great experience.
You're right. They've got to be in harmony, James, right? I mean, it's I love that concept of less is more. And absolutely, in terms of amenities, you know, it's spot on, but also in design as well. You know, it in its essence, it has to work. You know, how many times have we all stayed and maybe been upgraded to a beautiful suite and with the big basket of fruits, but it comes to bedtime, and how do you close the curtains? How do you're here and there's a light all the way over there. How do you switch the damn light off? Suddenly, it doesn't matter that it's luxurious, and then it can be the most, you know, elegantly designed, you know, furniture, but if it doesn't work, and really the art of hospitality is about getting 1,000 very small, simple things right every day. You know, people are not looking for the gold statues or the tigers in Milan. They're looking for it to work in its basic construct, and then surprise me. Back to, you know, what Federico, you were saying earlier, then surprise me and then lead me to something that, you know, will create some type of memorable moment.
Yeah, I think what we're doing with that, what you've just said, both the concepts that you've described from a brand perspective, we're trying to design guidelines that can kind of set this out so they can be repeated and repeated and repeated, but every time in a unique way. Because in terms of luxury and premium and ultra luxury, we haven't got any standards that tell you you must do things like this way, they have to look this way, you have to use these materials. What we do is we guide a designer and an owner through the process of exactly preparing these opportunities to happen. To the point that, you know, if we're going back to the art conversation, we've started a couple of years ago to create art and styling guideline books for our brands that work hand in hand with the briefing documents, so that the art narrative is working hand in hand with the design narrative of the property, because that way the whole thing becomes woven together. And like you were saying, Simon, it's not just stuck on afterwards. It's not something that, you know, you just push a button and the whole thing arrives in a big cellophane envelope, but it's actually something that organically develops through the design process, and you don't miss it out, and therefore becomes part of that experience and not an afterthought. Because our guests are getting more I guess, clever with it. They're more informed. I think that's the point. And they've gone through the days where certain brands were boasting, you know where you are because you're in this brand, and they were always the same. And now it's really about, you know, you're with this brand because your experience is touching certain emotions. And obviously, Simon, you're in the ultra luxury world. We have Orient Express. It's similar philosophy. You know, it is not for everybody. It's an aspirational brand. You either can afford it now or you save up. But either way, you don't want to be seen as somebody who's been taken for a ride. Excuse the pun, but you want to be seen as somebody who has earned the right to be there, enjoying as everybody else can, and feel part of that experience. So I think when we talk about art and when we talk about design, it is really an integral part. And then you sit it within a cultural context where you have local people, where you're looking at where they've come from and where they're going to, and you try and bring as much as in as possible. Because if I'm sitting in my home in Central Europe and I go and travel in Southeast Asia, I don't want to have the same things I've got at home. I want to make sure that I experience things differently. I get a little glimpse as to why they don't drink vodka, but whiskey in a particular place. It's probably because they grow, a lot of whatever ingredient they do. So I want to understand why. I want to learn why. And art can help me do that because it can set up little clues. And I was having a conversation earlier on today with somebody else about art, and it's like before, in the old days, you had to get the biggest artist you could afford, and it'll be that central piece, and you spend all your money on that, and then you have nothing left to do the rest of the hotel, and none of it made sense. But now it's really looking at, what is the artist, or what are the groups of artists, or what is the theme that we can apply to property to bring that honesty and that social connection. And again, we're talking about sustainability. What is that piece of art, or what is that art installation going to do for you in the future in terms of repeat customs, in terms of business? Sustainability is not just the environment, but it's also about the people that live around a property. So that's what's really interesting about the way we're developing design now, is we're trying to really make it an experience, as opposed to here it is, show off, in a marble room with gold lights. Here's your artwork. I think that's what.
That there's what's been happening here now in the past few minutes is that we've taken what is traditionally considered to be a culture, which is a narratives of a group of people in a geographical area, and we are fragmenting it to experiences, their personal experiences, that are actually a reflection of the people that are members of the cultures that we visit, which is a fascinating way of looking at culture, because the contemporary discussion about our mental well-being includes cultural sustainability, authenticity, and cultural regeneration. Those are three key words that are everywhere. But when you fragment it, like each one of you just did, you end up with a very, very personal experience that if you start threading through, you end up with someone who's relevant to the main three subjects. And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, Federico, you and I were together, I don't remember how many years ago, but we were about 16, in a conference, in some hotel conference in Porto, right? And we walk into the hotel. I don't remember which hotel it was, but I was there already 3 times. We walk into the hotel, and Federico sees me and he hugs me because it's my birthday. And we talk about the fact that it's a birthday and I'm stuck there and I don't see my kids on my birthday and so on and so forth. And we get our keys and we're about to go to our rooms. And on the way, the concierge, there was a young guy there, stops us and he says, can I ask you something? And we say yes. And he says, sir, it's your birthday today, right? And I say yes. He said, are you two interested in port? We said yes. So he said, listen, there is the annual, whatever it was, the annual event of port producers happening in town today. I have 2 tickets. Do you want them? Of course we do.
And that's a game changer. Yeah.
Exactly. And he said, but it's only for the trade. So you have to pretend that you're from the trade. I said, okay, that's no problem. We put our luggage in our rooms, stepped out, went to that place. We were both, I forget what we pretended to be, some whatever, reporters of some sort. We spent the whole day drinking port. You can imagine what the conference looked like to us when we came back. And we walked away. I remember what I walked away with a bottle of 1956 white port, which was exceptional. And it's a game changer, like you say, Simon. It created an experience that made me go to the hotel
that employee,
without even knowing the name of the hotel. I just kept going back because
and that employee cared. There's no SOP, there's no manual where it says if you hear it's someone's birthday and if you happen to have access, there's no way to do that. But when someone goes out of their way, and that's, ultimately, I pay no attention to accolades or stars, or these sort of self-awarded 7 stars, whatever. The guests decide what they're prepared. Are they prepared to pay more to come to you? And of course, you have to have all the basics in place, but the human touches that create the memories are ultimately what elevates the experience in the moment, but creates brand loyalty. And it's the fun thing for the employees to do as well. I mean, great, memorable experience I had in the 5 years ago, and I was just after I'd been made president, I was doing an area leadership team meeting in Geneva, and it was a big deal. I had all my regional vice presidents, the corporate vice presidents, and I had to sort of lead these 3 days for the first time. I got to the room, put my thing, and I saw a picture of my kids on the next to a small, James, well thought and positioned piece of fruit. And I saw a picture of my kids and then a button that said push me. So I pushed the button and it was like, hey daddy, this is Josh, Lottie and Abby, we know this is a big couple of days for you, blah blah. And they were just wishing that the GM had contacted, through my executive assistant Barbara, had contacted my kids, recorded their voices, put this up. It was so beautifully curated and personal, meant the world to me. And for me, that's where excellence in hotel keeping resides, in caring enough to curate something that becomes absolutely memorable.
That, James, I think you were saying before that, and I've heard you say, I think even before that innovation in design is people-based, that we find that people are looking for provenance, right? You said authenticity, theater, and experience in all hospitality design, which is a pretty bold statement. But to what extent do you, it's a culturally soaked experience. So to what extent can you actually design for it? Can you set a stage for that theater?
Yeah, I mean, an example, relatively, we do small projects, big projects, and the small projects, often you learn more. They're sometimes ahead of the big projects, and they keep you fresh. We did a few years ago a brewery and bar in Glasgow, and there was one place that there was going to be an artwork. It was an iconic location. It was the backdrop. It was where all the photos would be taken. And the client said, "Okay, so where's the artwork?" And we said, "Well, this time we've given you a frame, and we're going to give you a choice of 3 artists, and they're going to come in here the week before you open, and they're going to do the artwork in the frame in real time. Anyway, we had a guy came in. He was tough. He introduced himself. He said, "Don't call me an artist. I'm a vandal. I spray things on the street." Anyway, he painted this beautiful unicorn in the frame in real time. The cameras were there, the newspaper was there, the head office was there, the VIPs came in to have their drink and eat the food whilst he was painting. There was drips going everywhere, spray running down onto the new banquettes. He went over the frame, over the lines, which one of the interior designers, "Oh no, is he going?" Anyway, this thing, it was supposed to be something that was refreshed every 3 months with a local artist, and it's still there, I think three years on, because it was so good and it really fitted the piece. But everybody remembers this paint splattered guy doing it in real time, and the story is not just about the artwork, it's about the artist and about the event. So there we have provenance, theatre, and certainly authenticity. And you can talk to him about why he did the unicorn, why it was an angry unicorn, why it had to be chained up. It's a great story, but people remember that moment where it was a real artist. It wasn't something we bought from the print shop or from an online gallery. It was a real person. So that's an example. And I know Simon's, he has this issue, but one of the signatures of care is the breakfast. And when I started doing this job, it was every general manager was saying, yeah, the guy down the road, he's got 8 meters of breakfast buffet. You've got to give me at least 9. I said, that's fine, guys. But what are you going to put on it? What are the extras? I'll think about that later. But my breakfast buffet's got to be longer than his.
And now buffets are dead, James.
Buffets
are do buffets.
Exactly. It's come down to less is more again. You've got a choice of 3 amazing things, beautifully cooked, beautifully presented, and they come to you. It's not about quantity anymore and that big splash. It's about care and thought. And so the same goes from curating the breakfast to this artwork with the vandal spraying and messing up our beautiful restaurant.
I want to take you on that. Actually, I want to take Simon on that, because I heard you once say something and I jotted it down, and I'm going to quote you verbatim. Art is about, I can tell you from my experience, our main struggle in putting a collection for a hotel is moving as far as we can from the hotel and bringing as much of a voice that is relevant. If the voice is whiskey now and not vodka, we should bring the whiskey and convince everybody, the designers, the owners, the operators, that this is the right voice of that culture today. But then I heard you, Simon, say, and I'm quoting, you said, I'm a great believer in the concept that true luxury is rooted in getting the basics consistently right. And here are the basics you said: hot coffee, a clean room, timely service. This is from a person who runs the operation of an ultra luxury brand, right? And then it is experiential moments delivered by people who make it human and real, that elevates to a memorable level. This is, I hope I didn't miss anything. But
I'll keep that quote.
Right. It sounds very simple, but of course it's not. What is memorable? How do you make something human and real and then turn it into a memorable experience? This is where the magic happens, right? So where is it? Is it in the training? Is it in the choosing of the right people? Is it giving them the right to exercise their own culture so that they're comfortable in sharing whatever it is that they have? Where is the magic hiding?
I think it's all those things. And make no mistake that the guests will not be interested in a memorable moment if the room's dirty or if the coffee is not hot. And I'm speaking to the stewards in the hotels and telling them how mission critical they are. I said, we're in the back and we're washing dishes. Saying, but if you're sitting down in Le Cinq in Paris at a 3-star, having a 3-star Michelin meal, spending significant amount of money for it, the food can be amazing, the environment, the flowers and everything. When you sit down, if there's dirt on your fork because it hasn't been washed properly, or if there's a smudge on your glass, the whole experience is gone. So you guy washing the dishes or girl washing the dishes, you're mission critical. How do you create that? It's about the culture of a company. And it's about that sort of central ethos of what do you stand for? What does success look like? How's it achieved? How does that sort of come about? Not just on the posters that say people are our most important asset, But when times are tough, when you're under pressure, when the hotel's full, and, you know, I tell our GMs that, you know, their most important job is creating and nurturing the environment where those employees can be the best that they can be. Because no employees want to be crap at their jobs. You know, no one comes to Dubai, where I am now, from the Philippines or from India or from Nepal or from Thailand to be even average. They're coming because they want a job and they want to support their families. When they land in a hotel environment, you know, if the sort of, you know, the environment is good, so if they're welcomed and expected, if they have a uniform that fits, if they're trained, if they have a voice, if they're not discriminated against because of their gender or their national origin, if they see there is potential to grow, if all those things are present, they're going to think, wow, I'm going to be the best that I can be and I'm going to shine. But if those things are not present, if you have a boss that, you know, shouts or belittles or plays favorites, you know, that employee will still do their job, but they'll sort of shrink to a very safe center just doing their job. The problem is excellence doesn't reside there. Excellence is somewhere out on the cusp where you're being authentically you, where you're taking chances, where you're sort of letting your light shine. And so the GM's job is a job of nurturing, creating, sustaining the environment, that really making sure all the things that can stop the employees being great, get those things out of the way. Make sure that culture is, you know, rigidly enforced and is sort of nurtured on a daily basis, and that you're role modeling the tone from the top of why it's critically important. Because then the employees will shine and they'll do these little magic, you know, touches. Of course, underpinned by the rigor that makes sure the room's clean and the coffee's hot. I mean, there's 1,000 things that are waiting to go wrong every day for every single guest. And it's kind of this miraculous, you know, sort of teamwork that makes sure that it largely goes well, because the potential for falling short is there every moment.
You give people a platform to express themselves. Oh, sorry. I mean, if you give people a platform to express themselves, I think then they have room to grow and bring out the elements from their own culture that actually are set up to make you feel welcome, because everybody has a way of making somebody else feel welcome, and it's very culturally driven. But if you restrict the movement of these people, they will not shine, because they will not be comfortable in expressing that. They will stick to the rules. And I think the environment that we create for these people to work in, as well as the attitude that we manage them with, is really key to having that personal experience, because they can bring in something from their heart. And that's part of the culture, especially in the Middle East, where, you know, if I go to the Middle East with my kids, it's like the kids are kings, you know, because that's the way that they see children. And, you know, and I feel very comfortable with that, because I know that this is very much a cultural thing, and that they'll be safe and they'll enjoy themselves. And every other country I've been to, it's a different approach, but there's always that love of being there in a hospitality environment, that you want to bring out your culture. And I think that approach should be taken across all the lines of developing a hotel, starting from how you train staff, and how you design the spaces for the staff, how you then bring out the local culture through the materiality, through the art, through the dialogue that you do design a building with. And I think that's really important. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, if you have trust in the people you've hired, being a designer or a waiter or a doorman, and you give them the room to be themselves and interpret what they've learned with their own minds, you're never really going to fail, because you empower them to do a good job. And so then you create this kind of circular, socially amazing economy of minds and money and everything else, and everything works. I think that's the beauty about being in hospitality, is we can give people that space to interpret within a set of parameters. And I think the more you do that, the more you get the guy who spots dates of birthday, the more you get the lady who says, oh, you know, you're away from your kids, so here's re-recorded, and everything else just kind of falls into place. So there's an element of trust that needs to be, an acknowledgement that people have a culture. There's no right or wrong. Let them bring it out and see the benefits of that.
Let me be a little bit of a devil's advocate for a second. Okay, we are all presenting the nice side of that cultural experiencing of the hospitality, beautiful land. But there's a whole long process. It takes what, on average, about 7 years to come up with, to open the doors to a hotel. Many things happen along the way. There are many conflicting interests. There are many elements to be considered. There are players that come in with different concepts of life, culture, budgets, importance of certain elements and less importance of others. Where do you, each one of you, because again, there are different practices. I can tell you where my challenges are, but where are the key challenges? Where are the moments in that process, in that 7 years of making a dream happen, of making the doors open and welcoming the first guest? Where are those major hurdles that each one of you from your angles have to fight hardest to make sure that at the end of the day, it will be that experience that we are all now talking about?
I mean, it's commercial. The reality is, these beautiful experiences won't reside in a business that doesn't make money. So from the early development stage, it's working, particularly as a management company, with capital partners, investors who have the vision and then are able to put together the financial wherewithal to bring a project to reality. And as you said, several years. We opened in Madrid and Canalejas, knitted 6 buildings together, several hundred million euros, an incredibly ambitious architectural project, sort of going underground and working from within. And as I said, piecing together these different buildings. And all along that way, it's several years of expense for the owner, hiring the architects, all the sub-consultants, engaging with the operator. It's an arduous journey to get there. And it relies heavily on human relationships. Deciding to be in business with Four Seasons is a generational decision. Our contracts are 60, 80, some even 100 years. So this decision to create something together will outlive all of those that were party at its inception. But that allows you to change the paradigm a bit as owner and operator on the types of decisions you make when you're taking a very long-term view. But along the way, it can be messy. There's fraught times. There's value engineering that has to be done. There's fighting on, artistic direction. There's, a great hotel is refined in the fire over many years, and everyone works together. But often there's a lot of grit and there's a lot of, opposing views, but ultimately end in, a magical, iconic, hotel that then we can sort of develop from there. But it can be a messy and a tough and a fractious process at times, for sure.
So I think what you're saying, if I try to distill it, it's about perseverance. It's really about getting to the finish line without losing the vision along the way.
Well, vision. We're opening in Taormina in Sicily this summer. It's highly complex, the San Domenico Palace and the Conventino next door. And we're under so much pressure at the moment as we go towards opening. And is the FF&E going to arrive? Is this? Of course, like everything's behind, everything's, sort of running with your hair on fire. And the last call we had the owner partners, I said, let's just stop for a moment. Let's recognize that this hotel is going to be amazing. It's going to be one of the great resorts in Europe. People are going to get married here. They're going to propose here. They're going to have their honeymoons here. It's going, we're putting together something that is magical. And whilst we have to look at our feet and all these functional things that have to be done, let's stop for a moment and raise our heads, raise our eyes to the horizon of what's going to become. This is a worthy pursuit. We're creating something that's, once in a generation. And I think it's important to persevere, but also to stop and recognize, hey, we're part of creating special here.
James, where are your top challenges along the way?
Oh, no. I mean, it depends. It depends. I mean, I people have interviewed me and they've said, well, what was your project of a lifetime? And I have to say that, I'm lucky enough to have had a whole string of projects of a lifetime, really unusual projects, which won't come along again. But it's about having the courage of your convictions. Often, you're designing something which won't be open for 4 or 5 years. You've got to think to the future, how people are going to live. In many ways, you're doing things which have never been done before. You've got to think very hard and then convince people that that's the right thing to do. You have revelatory moments. We launched a ship a year ago, which is actually formally being launched in a week or so, as you know. And the hook that we designed around was make the sea the star. Sounds obvious. It's a great big ship, but actually people going on cruises have forgotten that they were on the sea, on the water. They're in a great big floating hotel. They might have had a small window. They rarely looked out of it. Something like a staggering amount of people don't get off the ship in port, something like 40% of people. So they're there for the experience inside the ship. But for us, the connectivity with the sea was the thing which made this the unique experience. Of course, you want to have a big window and look at the sea at night, and have some light coming out of the window so you can see how the waves are moving. That's the poetry of it. We can be pragmatic and say people don't care about that. They just want to go from the theatre to the cooking lesson to the whatever it might be. But having the sea coming back, making the sea the star, was so basic, but weirdly revolutionary. So, some things are simple, some things are complicated. And, we're doing something at the moment. We won a competition for a hotel up in Edinburgh, I think 4 or 5 years ago. It won't be open for another year and a half. It's the W up in Edinburgh. And as time has moved on, that building has unlocked all kinds of opportunities. I mean, we've got a big roof terrace there. 4 years ago, it was incidental because there was a flat roof, and we'll take people up there for the two hot weeks in summer where they can enjoy the view. Now, with where we are at the moment, everybody wants to eat outside. People will happily be in the wind and a bit of cold. We'll give them some shelter and some heaters, but that's going to be some people's first preference will be to eat al fresco. So you never know where these things are going to come from, and you have to be agile and respond in real time, particularly when you've got these big events like in this case, a pandemic. But there's something I wanted to come back to Simon on, is technology. People are always asking, how's technology, how's it helping you? How's it changing things? Well, for me, at the luxury level, as Simon's already said, it's the human touch which defines luxury. You go to, a different grade of hotel, there's less people there helping you. If I go to an expensive hotel for that kind of experience, I want a human being to ask me, because a human being has empathy. Alexa doesn't. I can order a goose down pillow from her, but she doesn't have any empathy. If I order it from the guy behind the reception, there's some discussion about it. Oh yes, we have something, and that's what I want. I don't want a robot helping me. I want a human, because you get extra. And I was going to ask Simon is that, in the good hotels in the old days, there was somebody, a VIP coming, or maybe not even a VIP. In the staff areas, there'd be a photograph of this guy coming up saying, he's going to be here tonight. Make sure you greet him by name. Make sure you ask him, it's his anniversary. And it was humane. The guys would be around the photo. Yeah, I've got to remember him. Now, the data gathering means that the computer will tell you when he last stayed, what he had in his minibar, when the anniversary was, and so on. And it's sort of doing the same job, but it's not the same. And I think, Simon's challenge in a way is keeping that human touch, the extra, under this pressure of technology.
Yeah, it's a very astute question, a relevant point, James, because ultimately luxury is all about people. And it's thousands of years old. It's biblical. It's a place of shelter, food and drink, and it hasn't changed massively over the years. However, the world and technology around us has changed. So I think it's a question of how you can embrace it to achieve the end so it still feels human. What you were referring to used to be called 20 years ago, we called it Show Me You Know Me, pictures in the back of house. Now we have a proprietary system called Golden that digitizes that, but everyone walking around has a phone, and they can have any guest, and they can have, as long as the picture's publicly available because of privacy and GDPR, it will have a phonetic, how you pronounce the name phonetically. So it gives them in their hand, and a room attendant up on the floors has access to this same information, as well, and their key preferences. So it puts that information in the hand that lets them recognize personally. Another thing that's worked amazingly well for us in the past years, and particularly over the pandemic, is the Four Seasons app. So it's a chat function. But but you're chatting with a real person. It's not going to robot. There's no robot. There's no pre-formatted answers. You're on your phone, you're asking a question, and it's someone in that hotel, in our core center, that, you know, is also answering the phone, if it ever rings these days, I don't know, but is answering the phone and doing other coordination efforts, but they will answer that chat. You can write it in one of 100 languages and it will be translated so the person getting it can, you know, understand it and can reply back in Mandarin if they need to as well through simultaneous translation. But it's coming to a real person. So if you want that pillow, it's like, you know, they're able to respond in a human way, saying, well, we have several different options, you know, and it's become more relevant because people don't so much today want to go down to the front desk and have a face-to-face interaction. So it's, for me, how can you use the benefit of technology to support the human delivery of service, not replace it?
Well, gentlemen, the clock is telling me that you know, we'll probably have to end.
We've
this.
only been going 10 minutes, Tal.
Exactly,
right?
not even. Not even, and we haven't covered, you know, that much of what we could have. But no. It's great to leave us with a good taste of more. This is the last of a series, and I must tell you that what happened in this call, I really find fascinating, because together we really broke what we called, here is Simon with another call, we broke that concept of sustainability, of cultural sustainability, which is really at the base of any sustainability. There is no ecological sustainability unless it grows from a culture. So it really is the baseline. It's what, Simon, what you call the, you know, the right coffee cup. We took it and we fragmented it, and we ended up at the end of the process with the people, which I find fascinating, because at the end of the day, each one of those people that is part of the whole hospitality environment, whether it on land or at sea, whether, you know, it's a destination that you visit for 8 hours or a resort that you're now going to spend a week at the end of the day, each one of those people involved is a microcosmos that is part of the experiences that we as guests go through. And if it's well done, then we do have that experience that we are all journeying for all over the world. So maybe we'll end up with the words of you know, the Aurora, the Sleeping Beauty. If you know, they say that if you dream something more than once, it's probably true. So with that, let's hope that all those experiences, all those beautiful elements of reflection and you know, much better personal well-being will be something that we will all be able to continuously be part of and just make better.
Sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams, exactly. So thank you very much. It's been fascinating. We've pretty much done it on time with a little bit of, you know, sleeping through. And I hope to see you in person as soon as possible, over vodka, or whiskey, or tea, or coffee, or, you know, whatever the right cultural note would be. And until then, thanks a lot. And thank you everybody who was listening to Seatrade Cruise Talks and has been partners with us for this mini series of who we are when we travel and how can we do it better, both for ourselves and for the cultures we visit. Thank you.